So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this thematic workshop on rivers as drivers for sustainable regional development. My name is Marco Citelli, and I'm a thematic expert for environment and resource efficiency for the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. And this afternoon, I'm joined by my dear colleague, Astrid Severin, also a thematic expert on environment and resource efficiency, for the moderation of this webinar. Of this workshop, sorry. Our colleague Eugénie Souplisson, our event expert, is also here with us to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So thank you, Eugénie, for this. And we will be also joined by our thematic manager of the Policy Learning Platform, Elena Ferrario. Before introducing the topic and the agenda of today's meeting, I would just like to say a couple of words on our housekeeping rules. So during this workshop, you will have the chance to interact with us and with other speakers. And you can do so through the chat. And also you can ask to intervene to formulate directly your questions. So please use the raise your hand function and turn your microphone on, your camera on when you intend to do so. And remain silent, please, for the rest of the time on mute mode. Two other things that you should know is that we will kindly ask you to fill in a short survey to collect your views on this event that we are having today, but also to collect your suggestions with regards to future activities of the Policy Learning Platform. And another thing that you should know is that we are also recording this meeting for the purpose of keeping track of the discussion that we're going to have today. And also this recording, together with the presentations that we will be delivered by our speaker, will be then available in the form of a follow-up article that we will prepare for the Interreg Europe website. So this being said, I turn very briefly to the presentation of the Policy Learning Platform. Can you see my slide? Okay, yes. So as most of you know, we are a space of continuous learning for regional policymakers. We try to foster exchange within the Interreg Europe community and beyond that. And we do our best to disseminate the results and the good practices identified within Interreg Europe projects. In this slide, you see our four pillars, I would say. The knowledge hub, the good practice database, the fact that we have an ever-expanding community. And also you see our fourth pillar, that is this expert policy support that we offer to the community of Interreg and also beyond that. The three services that we have are the policy help desk, the matchmaking, and the peer reviews. So you can send us in writing a policy help desk request, and we will get back to you in writing with tailor-made policy advice. We can organize for you a matchmaking session with a region that has successfully overcome a specific challenge that you are currently facing. And we can also set up a peer review, today extensive meeting to offer you specific in-depth policy advice, also to the expert, also thanks to the expert support of peers belonging to the Interreg Europe community. Given that the topic of today's discussion is going to be rivers, we just thought to give you this really quick overview on the richness of good practices that we have on water. Overall, we have more than 100 good practices in the area. They provide a great variety of replicable and cost-effective solutions for sustainable water management and the protection of water resources. And in these little hexagons, you see basically the main focus of our good practices in the water area. Here you just have a very brief outlook of some of our most recent activities in the field of water policy. On the left side of the screen, you see our most recent policy briefs. There is one linked to this event. So we have one on the rivers and wetlands as drivers of Sustainable Regional Development, which has just been published. And also we have an interest upcoming one in June on halting ocean plastic pollution that will focus on marine litter and plastic pollution. Here you also have the link that my colleague Eugenie will kindly then share with you, everybody, in the chat. So it's time for me now to move to the agenda. So, and presenting everybody. In this session, this introductory section up to 2:45, we will have 2 keynote speeches from Claire Baffert from the WWF Europe, and also Thomas Guillot from NECSTouR. Then at 3 o'clock, we will have the working group starting in parallel. The first one is going to be on ecosystem services and river restoration. And we will talk about this with Irene Ditti from the Emilia-Romagna region, Ivona Wagner from the University of Lodz, Joel Rhys-Jones from Natural Resources Wales, and also we will have with us as a discussant Emma Liberati from the European Rivers Network. In working group number 2, we will focus on water-link heritage and sustainable riverside tourism. And we will zoom in into good practices with Hans Stolen from the municipality of Breda, Susanne Gross from the Landtal Tourism Association, and also Zoltan Bara from the Pons Danubi area. Barbara Anton from ICLE Europe will be with us, and she will help us with commenting the good practices. Finally, we will have a plenary session starting at 4 o'clock sharp. And in this plenary session, we will have our discussants, Emma and Barbara, reporting back on what we have talked about in the working groups. And also we will have a final keynote speech from Mate Tash from the European Commission, DG Regio, to get insights on mostly on the financial aspects, on the European supports that is going to be available for the sustainable management and use of rivers and wetlands in the next 7 years. So this is all for the presentation. Maybe one thing that I could add is also that in between sessions, we will have 15 minutes breaks when my colleague Eugenie will direct you to breakout rooms where you will have the chance, only if you want, to meet and interact with other speakers and network with them. After those breaks, you will be directed again to the main room for the working groups and the plenary session. So it's all from me now for the moment. And I pass the ball to my colleague Astrid and to Eugenie that will launch some polls to get to know a little bit better the audience that we are having today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Marco. Exactly what we thought. We would like to get to know you a little bit better as well, so we know who is in the room. We have 140 people registered, and our first poll is looking a little bit into where you're coming from which organization. So if you could kindly click on if your background is a regional authority or a local authority, you're coming from a body with a public mission, or from academia or an NGO. So it would be really good if you could click on this now. And we have already some results. So we can see that, yeah, let's say 80% are coming from more or less public authorities, regional mainly, but also bodies with a public mission. And we also have some representatives of academias and NGOs, which are playing also an important role in this area. So our second poll, which I'm going to ask Eugenie to launch, is looking into the subject of today. So we would like to know if you're happy with the way the rivers are managed in your city or region today. So please click yes, their ecological status is greatly improved over the last years, or yes, but they could be even better protected, or no, even if their waters are now clean, rivers are hardly accessible, or finally, no, they are severely polluted and inaccessible. So, very good. A majority of people here today are letting us know that they're okay, but they could be even better protected. 13% have already had great improvements, and I think we will hear a lot in these days how much more we have to do, because they should all be greatly improved. And we of course have also almost 30% of people telling us that no, we have to do more. So I think we're in the right place for having a good discussion. And I give back the word to Marco to introduce our keynotes.
Yes, thank you very much, Astrid. So it's time for us to have our keynote discussion, and we will start with Claire Baffert from the WWF Europe, Senior EU Policy Officer there, who is going to talk about supporting ecosystem services provided by rivers, and who's going to talk about experiences and recent policy trends. So thank you very much, Claire, for being with us today. And the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes for your keynote speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marco. I'm going to share my screen. You should now be able to see it normally, and I hope you can hear me correctly. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm glad to be with you this afternoon to speak about rivers and all the ecosystem services that they provide. Rivers and in general lakes, wetlands, all freshwater bodies are the source of life on our planet and the pumping hearts of our landscapes, as we say. They provide us with many gifts that you can see we try to represent on the left side of this picture. And actually a lot of these gifts are directly related to some of the key pillars of the European Green Deal. Biodiversity first is thriving in freshwater ecosystems. In Europe, there are more than 500 different freshwater fish species, 80% of which are endemic, so it's a wonderfully rich biodiversity. Rivers and lakes also help us to be resilient to the impact of climate change. They are the main source of our drinking water, but they also help us to reduce our exposure to flood and drought risks. Freshwater ecosystems are also helping us to get on the path towards a climate neutral Europe, because peatlands, which are also some kinds of freshwater ecosystems, are real carbon sinks and store large amounts of carbon. And of course, a sustainable agriculture is directly also reliant on freshwater resources. So despite, however, despite all those gifts that they provide, our freshwater ecosystems are deeply endangered. 60% of EU rivers, lakes, wetlands, and streams are not healthy, according to the standards set by the EU Water Framework Directive. So we are not really close to reach the target set by this directive, which is to reach good water status by 2027. There is also a large decline in freshwater species, 83% decline observed globally since 1970. And if you focus on Europe, 1 out of 3 European freshwater fish species are threatened with extinctions. This is due to a wide range of pressures. Hydromorphological pressures are the most important in Europe. So elements like dams, weirs, dikes are really affecting the status of water. Diffuse pollution is the second source of pressure. and then come other types of pressures like excessive water abstraction, or also other types of pollutions. So yeah, the state of rivers is really dire. Luckily, there are some projects on the ground that enable us to protect and restore our rivers, and this is all the value of the Interact program. To quote only a few projects where WWF is involved, and here it's our Austrian office has been involved in 2 projects aimed at protecting the 5-country biosphere reserve Mura-Drava-Danube. We've been involved in a first project from 2017-2019, which aimed at enhancing the management of protected areas and developing a joint management program for this future UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and enhancing the cooperation between the protected area managers. And as this project revealed that there was also room for more cooperation in the field of river restoration, now we are involved in the second project, which is really about developing an integrated restoration strategy and implemented some pilot projects. Here in this presentation, I would also like to focus on the specific benefits that are provided by rivers when they are free-flowing. And by free-flowing, we mean when they can flow unobstructed, so not obstructed by barriers, by obstacles, be they longitudinal, like dams or weirs, or be it lateral, like dikes, for instance, that prevent the water from expanding. Those free-flowing rivers are very valuable. They provide multiple services, like they provide valuable habitats, like, for instance, some kinds of alluvial forests that are directly depending on those rivers that can expand. They allow floodplain agriculture. They increase our climate resilience because, as I was saying, they allow the river to expand, and then they make us less vulnerable to the impacts of floods, and they also can store water, which can help during periods of drought. They have recreational value because you can then have a lot of activities like hiking, kayaking, bird watching, etc. They are very good for plant and animal life, and especially they allow migratory fish to migrate up and down the rivers. They allow sediment transport, which is also very important for habitats for many species, but also to help consolidate riverbanks and prevent erosion. And they allow the recharge of underground waters. However, these free-flowing rivers are really threatened. Europe has the most fragmented rivers on Earth, and this is because all the multiple structures that are being built and that were built in the past, such as dams, weirs, for different purposes like hydropower, agriculture, flood protection, etc. As I was saying earlier, hydromorphological pressures are the first reason why member states failed to achieve good ecological status under the Water Framework Directive. It acts as a significant pressure for 34% of surface water bodies in Europe. And river barriers are one of the main reasons and one of the main factors behind those hydromorphological pressures. You can see on this map in red where those pressures from barriers are the most significant. So you can see a lot of red across Germany, Denmark, in France along the Loire and Rhone rivers, in Spain as well, in Sweden. So yeah, this enabled to locate where the pressures are the biggest. And actually, the biggest number of barriers are barriers due to hydropower and to flood protection, before barriers for other purposes like irrigation, for instance.
Claire, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, I'll be quicker then. A direct result of that is that migratory freshwater fish populations have dramatically collapsed in Europe by 93% since 1970. Dam removal, barrier removal is emerging as a solution that enables to address this pressure. And the different experiences around the globe show that there are many benefits in removing barriers. For instance, from the US, we learned that dam removals are 60% less expensive than repairing and maintenance over 30 years. From Austria, we learned that free-flowing river sections have more recreational value than dam sections. From Germany, we learned that relocating dams along the Elbe River can reduce significantly the flood stage. And from the Céline dam removal in France, we learned that dam removal would generate a 3-fold increase in suitable habitat for salmon juveniles. A recent report from the Finnish Nature Panel also showed that barrier removal is one of the green measures that has the highest impact on both biodiversity and economic recovery. At EU level, the institutions are starting to recognize the value of free-flowing rivers, because in the EU biodiversity strategy, they have put forward a commitment to restore at least 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers by 2030 through the removal of obsolete barriers and the restoration of floodplains and wetlands. And the European Parliament, in its resolution on the implementation of the water legislation, has supported this commitment. Now, you can of course wonder if this target is ambitious enough, because 25,000 kilometers is only 2% of EU rivers. There is evidence from the Ember project that 100,000 barriers in Europe are obsolete, and that by removing 2.5% of them, this 25,000 kilometer target could be achieved. So this shows the potential to go beyond that. A country like France has already set the objective of restoring 50,000 kilometers of river continuity, although they don't really define precisely what they mean by river continuity, but still this is an ambitious objective. With other NGOs, we recommend raising this target to 15% of rivers by 2030 to be restored to a free-flowing state, but especially making it legally binding under the EU Nature Restoration Law. I'll be very quick with my last slides because I know time is short, but I can come back to that in the Q&A. We've released an analysis on the potential for barrier removal. We analyzed a sample of 30,000 barriers only in large and medium-sized rivers in Europe, and it includes longitudinal barriers higher than 0.5 meters in height. It excludes some specific barriers like hydropower plants above 10 megawatts and other barriers. And we mainly used criteria for prioritizing those barriers linked to the length of reconnected rivers and the ecological quality of the reconnection. I can talk about that later in the Q&A. But basically what we show with this study is that by removing a bit more than 7,000 barriers, you could achieve nearly the target of the figure of 50,000 kilometers of rivers reconnected. So this for us shows that there is really potential to set a target that is more ambitious than 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers to be restored. Fostering barrier removal presents several challenges for policymakers. and we are aware of that, but despite the different approaches that exist across member states to prioritize barriers for removal, we see the necessity to uphold common principles like a clear definition of free-flowing rivers and a large one that includes longitudinal but also vertical and lateral barriers, and that fosters really the full removal of barriers, not only their adaptation with fish passes. And other principles like including barrier removal in river basin management plans, collaboration with multiple stakeholders are, I think, also important. I will stop now. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available to answer questions later.
Thank you very much, Claire. It was a really very rich keynote from your side. You explained very well the reasons why the full enforcement and implementation of the Water Framework Directive is still something not so close, and also really clearly the benefits that would stem from free-flowing rivers. By the way, the study that you mentioned at the end of your presentation is also linked in the policy brief on rivers and wetlands that we have just published. So you can read about that also through our work. Eugenie, if you want to also share the link of the policy brief in the chat, that would be great. Time is running very fast, so I will just move to Thomas Guillot. I give the floor to Thomas to talk about successful strategies for sustainable riverside tourism. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. So let me find a way to share my screen and everything. I hope.
In the meantime, if you want to get ready for your questions, please don't also hesitate to post them in the chat while Thomas is loading up. Exactly.
Okay. Everyone is ready? Cool. So I'm Thomas Guillot. I work for NECSTouR. I'm going to say who is NECSTouR very quickly. So NECSTouR is a network of European regions for competitive and sustainable tourism. We are an always expanding network advocating for a stronger position for tourism in the European agenda. We are based in Brussels, which is sadly very poor in rivers, but we do know a lot about rivers because we are engaged in one partnership, in one very interesting inter-Europe project, which is STAR Cities. STAR Cities, which means sustainable tourism for attractivity of riverside cities, is a partnership built around urban tourism. It's a very complete partnership. You have Hamburg, Rome, Paris, Kaunas, and Ljubljana. In this partnership, our role is within this project is to ensure communication and exchange of experience between the project partners and our whole networks. Like I said, we have 36 regions. So in the attendance, we have 35 people of regional authorities. So I invite you to check NECSTouR website. One of other tasks is to collect, exchange good practices on river tourism in a sustainable way to other NECSTouR regions. We are going to talk about that a bit later. And of course, we are participating in a working group on cultural tourism to deepen exchange related to spread tourism, innovating in tourism strategy to the valorization of the natural and cultural heritage of rivers. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to separate my intervention in two. First, we're going to see 5 different strategies from the Star City project and our network. And then we're going to see what NECSTouR is doing related to river tourism advocacy-wise. So the first one is a very interesting. I'm always saying it's very interesting because all of them are interesting. It's an event organized by the Hamburg Metropole region, which is the region and the metropole of the city of Hamburg. As you know, in Germany, some big cities have a small region, but very important in population. And it's a biennial festival showcasing Hamburg industrial heritage since 2011. The next edition, for example, is 25 and 26 September 2021. It's an event to relies heavily on local volunteers, so it's a good opportunity to involve the population, local population, and through the whole region, 120 destinations are opening their doors and are offering guided tours, special exhibition and activities. It's coordinated by the metropolitan region, and there is different kind. If you want to know more about it, you can go into the wonderful Interreg Europe platform, because it's one of the few good practice that have been shared already by the project. We are in the process of uploading them all one by one, but this one is here, so I invite you to look for it into the platform. The next good practice is 4 DMOs working together for river tourism development. So if you know a bit Paris and the whole region of Paris, we are not talking about, of course, the commune of Paris, but we are talking about the whole region, and especially the region in the southeast who's following the Marne River. So it's a cooperation of 3 different departments, but also 4 different tourism offices around the same river. It has been, it's a long process. It's a long process. It's 4 DMOs, like I said, to enhance and promote the tourist offer of the Marne River. It's a coordination system based on a new product, like a commented cruise, or to improve the quality of tourist offer and tourist service, like water sport clubs management, who can have the same problematic. And if you separate different DMOs, it's still better to have the same the same strategy for all of them. So like I said, you can I invite you to go to any of these tourism office website, but especially Val-de-Marne Tourisme et Loisirs, which is the lead partner of Star Cities. They have a long somewhat an explanation about this joint strategy. The next one is Blue Ways, which is the rehabilitation of 300 kilometers of roads along the rivers. It's still a long process. It's a 50 million euros budget, all operated from the Barcelona County, which is not the Barcelona city. It's the county englobing, surrounding the Barcelona the Barcelona commune. It's so the whole area of influence of the project has go from Barcelona to the Pyrenees. It's the goal is to improve accessibility to cultural, industrial, and natural resources, and of course, with a strong target on cycling and hiking tourism as a complement of the existing tourism offer in Barcelona. It's kind of big, and to diversify, deconcentrate, and break seasonality, and also, of course, target the locals. They had a lot of challenges for a project of this side, like legal requirement, an agreement with 51 municipalities along the rivers, but they are doing a good job for it, because it's almost
3 minutes.
Is almost starting. Thank you, Marco. We're going to go quickly to Rome. Rome is as an agenda Tevere, which is a tool constructed for the conquest of the river's banks with the support of citizens and politics. It's around the river Tibre, which is, if you know it, not the most touristic part of Rome, but some people are fighting for it. I invite you to go to their website. You will receive the slide afterwards. And the next good practice from Star Cities is a very beautiful website to repair to gather all the proof of the stuff they found in the river, to raise awareness of citizens and inhabitants for or to environmental issue in the Kaunas rivers. So on our side in NECSTouR, we are having we publish our new vision for the tourism of tomorrow in May 2020. And where does tourism land in our strategy? Is of course a good opportunity for tourism offer diversification, cultural heritage valorization, slow tourism, sustainability tourism. We have a strategic action which is still relevant, which is better places to live, better places to visit. I invite you to visit our website for that. It's very important for us. With the recovery plans coming out, we are encouraging our regions to put tourism into their recovery plans, and even the member states. But contrary to bike tourism, for example, river tourism is rarely targeted as one goal for investment, as any tourism sector is transversal between many different economic and ecological areas. Some regions might have included them into their sustainable river management, but not always for tourism. And of course, we are part of the European Tourism Manifesto, which is an alliance contributing to draft national recovery plan and with reforms and investment proposal related to travel and tourism. So this is some of the proposal we've made were directly related to tourism. It was published in the February 9 of this year. And the Tourism Manifesto, it's 60 European public and private organizations covering the whole tourism value chain. So voila, I invite you to go to their website and look for it. You will receive the slide after a while. I'm going to quickly finish by saying that the next step for Star Cities is we are going to organize as NECSTouR the European conference in October or November 2021, where you will be able to discover the guide of good practice we are going to share, and the regional action plan are going to be shared in 2022. And of course, if you want to keep in touch with us, you can follow Star Cities newsletter, subscribe to our NECSTouR, which is our NECSTouR newsletter, or follow NECSTouR on social media. Voilà. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, again.
Thank you,
to
Marco.
you as well. It was a very rich presentation again. That shows that strategies for developing a riverside tourism offer can come with multiple shapes and forms. So a lot of insights about that as well. So we have 10 minutes and we open the floor to questions. Who wants to break the ice?
Well, let me break if you want.
Thank you.
And then, somebody else can also come and be an icebreaker. Maybe I can start with asking Thomas. You've also listened to Claire, and she has explained that there is a lot of barriers that could be removed. And how could this go together? Do you see like how you can combine this with the development of an attractive, sustainable tourism offer? Is there any approaches already for that? Well,
I think Claire said it already, but the key is always collaboration, of course. This is the only way forward. Is the only way forward is to make different territories to work together, because this is the main problem, and rivers are mostly at the border of those territories, and sometimes there is good collaboration, and sometimes it's pretty terrible. So the main challenge here is to make people work together, and it's not always relevant only for tourism, of course. But yes, if you want to be able to diversify your tourism offer to the rivers, which sometimes in the periphery of the cities, you have to make people, different kind of entities work together, and it's very challenging.
That is indeed the case. Maybe I can also ask Claire, how do you see this? How can this work together? Because it's also a question of economic development, going hand in hand with the rehabilitation of the rivers. Do you also have approaches for that, to work with sustainable tourism, for example?
Yes, I think we've seen, for instance, in the study that was conducted in Austria, which I mentioned quickly in one of my slides, that there was a comparison being done along the Moor River on the recreational use along the river, comparing the dammed sections and the free-flowing sections. And actually, this study revealed that, contrary to what was thought at the beginning, people were more prone to have recreational activities along the free-flowing sections of the rivers, because they went there for hiking, because these areas were more natural, so they could also see birds, animals. It was good for fishing. People were doing some kayaking activities. So actually, altogether, there were more recreational activities being done in those sections of the rivers than on the dam part. So I think it's really something that should be, evaluated when working on the development of a river.
Well, thank you very much. I think that makes it very interesting to have this combination and also have already the example from Austria. But we see a raised hand from Raymond Tillmans. Maybe Raymond, you can ask your question as well, please.
Yes, well, I have two questions or remarks. The first one is about tourism along riversides. I'm working for the Interact project, Wildlife Economy, and we are looking for a formula to reinvest the income we have from tourists, for example, again back into nature. So my question is, I saw this presentation. Are you also thinking about if you earn some money with tourism, that a part of it goes back to nature? That's the first question. I have another one, but maybe later.
Maybe very shortly, could you just very shortly also ask your second question?
The second question was a remark about the barriers. Maybe it's just a thought I had, because we build new barriers at this moment, and maybe we can see to it that if an authority builds a new barrier, he has to demolish two other old barriers. This could be an idea.
Thank you very much. So maybe the first question on how we can reinvest income from tourism into the nature part. Maybe that's a good question for Thomas, and the barrier one maybe for Claire.
Well, the answer for the first question is how to reinvest income from tourism to nature. So it's kind of a vast question, but it's always a question of public authorities into the territory. If the tourism industry and the tourism are well connected together, for example, if you have a regional DMO which collects not directly, of course, the revenue from tourism, but who are indirectly financed by the tourism industry, you can also connect it to the sustainable development department of this regional authority, and if they work together, it can always be a way to reuse the revenue from tourism to nature. So, for example, we have one good practice in Val-de-Marne, which is called the SAGE, S-A-G-E, which is a way to get the water quality of 3 rivers in Val-de-Marne, and a way to promote this activity, which is piloted by the sustainable department of the regional authority, not the tourism, is by doing some some tourism activity on those rivers or around those rivers. So you are working hand in hand, and most of the time tourism is working as a communication of the activities you are already doing about making the rivers better.
Thank you, Thomas. Maybe Claire?
Yes, and on the question, the suggestion regarding barriers, I very much agree with the suggestion that was made. actually, you're right, there are still a lot of barriers that are being built at the moment on rivers, for instance, for hydropower purposes. The best thing would be, of course, to stop building new barriers, but when some are being built, actually the Water Framework Directive imposes some obligations. So you need to evaluate the impact of the barriers on the water status, to evaluate if this will deteriorate the water status or not. If the deterioration is proven, then there are a number of conditions that need to be fulfilled, including taking measures to mitigate the impact of the barriers. Sometimes this is understood as only putting some fish passes, for instance. We know that the solutions, they have a very limited effectiveness and efficiency. So we are indeed pushing for restoration measures that are more important than that. And I agree with you, one of the solutions would be to look at the scale of the river basin, if there are other barriers that can be taken out to compensate for the impact of the new barrier that is being built.
Well, thank you very much. I hope that Raymond is happy with the answers, and of course we can also stay in contact if you need some more in depth. So with this,
thank you.
Very good. So with this, I would just ask one more question to our two keynote speakers with the request to just make a one-sentence answer, please. So my question is, like, where should a region or a city start with river restoration or with sustainable river tourism? So maybe to finish off this round, we start with Claire.
Well, that's challenging to answer in one sentence, but I would say to really think and analyze all the benefits that your river provides already or can provide, and try to value those benefits as much as possible.
Thank you very much. That was great. And Thomas, in one sentence?
It's always tricky. My answer is inhabitants. You should always start your sustainable tourism strategy with the involvement of the local population.
Thank you so much. I think we can be really happy about your contributions. So back to Marco.
Yes, we are at the end of our first session. So we are going to have a little break now. Our colleague Eugenie is going to direct you in the breaking rooms I was mentioning before. When you join the breaking room, you are free to connect with the other participants of this workshop, but also not if you prefer not to, and go back to the main room where we will start the parallel working groups at 3 o'clock sharp. So that's all for the moment, and enjoy the break.